Right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Diversity in Water Speaker Series. Just one second, let me share my slides. We are so glad that you were able to make it tonight. We've got a great event tonight. Today we welcome Keshia Kinney from the City of Dayton. And just to give, for some of you who may not have attended one of our speaker events before, we're going to talk about OAWWA and some of the things that American Water Works Association does. We started the speaker series like about 2 years ago, and really it's an avenue for us to all talk about diversity in water and how we can, in our day-to-day life, but also where we work, encourage diversity in the water workforce. We're going to see huge numbers of people retiring in the next few years, and we really need to think about recruitment and encouraging diversity where we're at. So I would encourage each and everyone that's on this call, it's the new year, we're thinking about things that we can do differently. I would encourage you to, be inclusive and invite people to lunch. Maybe there's somebody that, started at your workplace. Invite them to lunch or for a coffee. There's all sorts of little things you can do just to encourage, be inclusive. All right. The Diversity Committee, if this is something that's close to your heart, American Water Works has a Diversity and Inclusion Committee. And its goal is to promote volunteer employment opportunities that encourage diversity. We're celebrating the mosaic of people in this industry who bring a variety of backgrounds, styles, perspectives, and beliefs. Also, if you're newer to the industry and want to get involved, we have an amazing young professional organization. We have monthly calls that you can participate in if you're interested in getting involved. And don't worry, if you're interested in getting a role and kind of getting your foot in OAWWA, we have lots and lots of positions and are always expanding. We also do events on a local level. So I'm one of the young professionals reps. I work in the Southwest district, and we will have a couple events coming up. March, we will have at OAWWA membrane plants. We will have a membrane plant tour with 2 water contact hours. So there's only like 20 spots for that tour. So if that's really something you want to do, send me an email and I'll make sure that you're on the list to be notified as soon as that registration gets up, which it shouldn't be long, because I anticipate that one will probably be filled pretty quickly. We also are looking at having an online lunch and learn on membrane technology, also with contact hours. So kind of stay tuned on those two. All right. And with that, just some housekeeping. Please mute your microphone. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end, so feel free to use the chat box to ask any questions. We'll read them out at the end. We are recording this session, and it'll be made available on our Diversity in Water YouTube. So if you want to watch it or share it with others, we will have that available. All right. And with that, I am very pleased to introduce Keshia Kinney of City of Dayton. Keshia is currently the manager of the City of Dayton's Division of Water Supply and Treatment. She started with the City of Dayton in 2006 as a water bacteriologist and chemist. The division has 117 personnel responsible for managing the city's 2 well fields, 296 MGD treatment plants, 800 miles of distribution piping, 12 booster stations, 2 main pump stations, and the Lime Reclamation Facility. In addition, she has served as an Ohio Section OAWWA Southwest District Representative and OTCO trustee, along with teaching water courses. Ms. Kinney is an Ohio Water Class 4 operator. She graduated from Wright State University with a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science and a Master of Science degree in Pharmacology and Toxicology. So we are very happy to have you, Keshia, tonight. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my slides and hand it over to you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm going to share my slides. Hopefully this works out well. All right, so hopefully everyone has my slides up. And I guess I will start now. So again, as Megan introduced me, my name is Keshia Kinney, and I'm the Division Manager for Water Supply and Treatment for the City of Dayton. I thought I would start by telling you guys a little bit about myself. So initially, I am from the city of Cincinnati. I have two sisters, so they're right here. They're both younger, so I'm the oldest. And those of you who have older siblings, we have older sibling quirks that we have, but they do tend to hang out with me. So that's always good. This was actually when we went to go see it. I also have one son. He's right here. He's 15 now. I'm starting to feel old. And then this is my husband over here, Dan. This was actually from the summer. We like to travel every year. So this was actually from our summer trip where we did New York and DC all in a week. And this actually started to make me understand my age, because during a week-long adventure of two cities of that size, I definitely felt it later. I also have 3 nephews. I could not find a good picture of all 3 of them together, but as you can see, they're boys and they like to climb on me even as we're walking up steps. And then I have a little niece here who this is actually her first time going to see the ballet. I took her to see the Nutcracker over Christmas. So as I said, I'm from Cincinnati, and these are actually my friends that I've had since middle school and high school. And I'm still friends with them, so I guess that's a good sign. And the same friend group is actually the group that I tend to travel with every year. So I'm generally someone who tends to make friends and tries to keep them for as long as possible. There's a few additions, and again, I've probably known these ladies probably going on 10 years for the newer group, if you consider friendships for 10 years new, and then the other ones I've known since middle school. Our running joke is that I know some of them longer than I've known my youngest sister. And I now live in the city of Dayton, and I came here to go to school at Wright State and just kind of stayed and haven't left. So that's just a little bit about me. So again, I have a bachelor's of science in environmental health and safety. And my concentration when I was in college was, I'm going to be an industrial hygienist. I'm going to go work in the factories. I'm going to make sure all the workers are safe. I'm going to do all this, and it's going to be workers first, and so forth. But what I've learned, and I think college students still do this, is you have a very idealized view of the world, and you think that you get a 4-year degree and then you're automatically going to have a job. Well, for those of you who remember 2001, we ended up going into a recession. So those of us who had environmental health and safety degrees, you really weren't going to find a job, or if you found a job, you weren't going to earn enough money. So what I ended up doing was going ahead to go get my master's degree in pharmacology and toxicology. Now, my first day of grad school was actually September 11th. So the day that the towers came down was my first day of starting grad school. And I remember getting a call saying, do not come to campus, and we don't know when classes are going to start. Well, for those of you who are not from the Dayton area, Wright State is located right next to the base. So you sense like a sense of panic, and you heard like the planes and everything that's right next to the university. But I did get my degree. It was a great time getting my degree, but I concentrated on neurophysiology, which I'll talk about a little bit more. So we're not necessarily, that field isn't the ones that create the medicine. They generally tend to do the research behind how the medicines are created. So that's what my degree is. And that's more what a pharmacologist does. You're not the people in the pharmacy prescribing it, you're doing the research to get to those therapeutics. So while I was at Wright State, all the way from the time I was an undergrad all the way through until I graduated, I had a few jobs. Again, you're in college, you're idealistic, you're changing your majors, you're changing what you're interested in. You realize that maybe organic chemistry is not your thing. I was one who decided organic chemistry was not my thing. Or you might decide calculus isn't your thing. Well, these are all the different jobs I had. So I was a tour guide, which was actually very useful because I am naturally an introvert. I would prefer not to talk to anyone and just kind of fade out into the background. But being a tour guide actually made it where I had to learn how to speak in front of people. That was one of my things that I thought I needed to work on. So then, in order to graduate, you have to do some form of an internship. So I did a student safety technician, which was actually very useful, but it also made me understand that maybe I don't want to be the safety person, where I have to tell people, wear your goggles, make sure you're wearing your safety shoes. Do you have enough clearance for these chemicals? Checking confined spaces, making sure you know if a room has enough light or if you have enough sound, if it's too noisy. I kind of started to realize that maybe that's not exactly my jam. Another thing I did while I was there was participate in this program called the Science Apprenticeship Program. And this was one of the first times I got to do a program where they're encouraging young people, generally underrepresented entities in the science field, to come in for the summer. And these kids would get to do this. And when they would come in for the summer, you would assign them to a lab. So the professors, understanding that you need to get more people involved, or younger, more diverse groups of individuals involved into the programs, would do this. And they would open these labs, and these are high school students, and they would be there all summer. So this was a great learning experience to find out more about research, but then also to see the joy that a lot of these students had actually getting to have that type of exposure. And then my last job, I was a lab assistant. And this actually kind of happened happenstance. So my science apprenticeship program generally would tend to end at the end of the summer, and you had to find another job for work study. And I just happened to see that this lab assistant position was posted down on the boards. This is before internet, so you had to actually go get the paper and look for it. And I saw this position was posted. I didn't even know where the pharmacology department was at Wright State. Quite frankly, I'm not even sure at 20 if I could pronounce the word pharmacology properly. So I ended up going up there, and my advisor then was a really young guy, and he was like, "Hey, are you here for my lab assistant position?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Oh, fantastic, come on in." And I actually ended up being one of his first students. And that's also who ended up being my advisor later on. So while I was working as a lab assistant and being a lab assistant and a student, I actually had a few publications that happened. So I got to publish papers, and I'm all excited. I'm like, I'm going to be a researcher when I grow up. This is my job. So these are just a few of my publications I had when I was there. And then the other thing I did was scientific presentations. And this is basically a part of being a grad student, is you do presentations where you talk about your work and you actually get to see the progress, and you have people who have similar research projects that they're going, or interest will actually come, and they'll come up to your poster presentation and they'll ask you questions about it. Now, they're generally nicer to students, thank goodness, but they do tend to ask you more technical questions about what you're doing. And it was definitely a learning experience. Like, my first time I did a presentation was in 2003. So that was very, it was a learning curve. But you also got to meet people. So a lot of these meetings are not just people who are here from the United States. You generally tend to have people who are here from other countries. So you get experience to other people who just don't have the same experience as you have. But I I will say this was definitely where I learned that public speaking is not the thing I like to do, but I will do it if I'm talking about something that I'm passionate about or I believe in what I'm doing. So you're saying if you're doing these scientific presentations and you're publishing papers and whatnot, how did you end up in water? Well, we found out that I'm allergic to rats, which for a lot of researchers, this is one of your main animals that you tend to use. So for me, it wasn't that I'm just running experiments. I would have been what you considered a technician. So this would have included doing surgeries on rats where you mark pieces of their brains. I learned how to make rats hypertensive because that was the model, along with making them diabetic. You can even train rats to run on a treadmill. As crazy as that may sound, you can actually train them to do that, which was a part of what I was doing for a part of my research, was training them to do that and seeing how, exercise impacts hypertension and how that all links to your neurons that are in your brain. Because again, my concentration was on neurophysiology. So while we were there, since I'm doing surgeries, it's kind of hard to do surgeries if you're sneezing and your eyes are running. So at the beginning, when I found out I was allergic, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'll just take allergy medicine before I get there. Well, this was back in the early days of the Claritin and Zyrtec and some other ones. So Claritin in the beginning would make me sleepy. So you can't be doing surgeries down there yawning and whatnot. But Zyrtec would make my hands shake, and I can't do surgeries if my hands are shaking. So it became clear that this was probably not the career path that I would that I could stay with. But unfortunately, I already knew I was allergic to cats, but they went ahead and they did a panel and found out that I was allergic to gerbils, guinea pigs, and hamsters, and rabbits. And for those who are in research know that for most pharmaceuticals, rats and those other rodents that I named, rats and mice and whatnot, are your key animals that you use for research. So that meant I had to switch professions. So I was at Cincinnati doing the research. I couldn't do that. So this is how I ended up at the City of Dayton. My husband actually saw the job posting on the city's website as he's an electrician, and he was actually seeing about coming in to work as an electrician, but he saw this lab position and says, hey, do you think that you would be qualified to work doing water? And I looked at the job description and I said, they are not going to hire me to do this. And he was like, well, it doesn't hurt, just put your resume in. So again, this is prior to everything being able to be done on computers. So my husband actually took and walked my resume down and everything to where they accept our resumes at. And that was how I ended up at the City of Dayton. So while I've been here at the City of Dayton, I've been a Bachelor chemist, which is our entry-level job. I moved to water treatment technical supervisor, where I acted as acting for a year. And now my current position is as division manager for the Division of Water Supply and Treatment. So some of the awards, some of the highlights, because I was asked to talk about this, is Employee of the Year. You get your award for being a section representative, Employee of the Year, and then I have another award that's through the City of Dayton. But I will say one award out of what's here that I've gotten while I've been here has been the Richard Mealick Award. And this is an award you get for helping other operators get their certifications in teaching. And I think this is very important to make sure that you give back. The other thing that was cool about this is that my mentor actually won the award the year before. So it was kind of doubly exciting. But for me, it's the fact that you're giving back and you're sharing your knowledge that makes this a fantastic award. And another huge achievement is getting my class 4. So For those who are in the water field, the class 4 is the highest license that you can obtain. And it's definitely a struggle. So this is probably one of my highest achievements with being here as a water professional, is getting that award. And it was 2 years of all kinds of struggle and chaos, and made me rethink every life decision I had made up until this point. So some of the challenges that I've had since I've been here that are more along the lines, not so much operational challenges, but more personal challenges. So the first thing I have on here is adapting. So this is a picture of my lab mates. And I want to explain this. We're a bunch of 20-year-olds that they throw in a lab and they say, your job is to learn, your job is to create, your job is to do new items, new stuff. You have a protocol, but if you don't like that protocol, you can make it different. As long as you note it, it's always a learning experience. So these 3 ladies here, which I still talk to, they're still people I call if I have a question, or I go out for drinks with, or have lunch in the middle of the week, just because they're my friends. They're not just coworkers. These are like my chicks. These are the ones where it could be a Friday night and we're all like, are we coming in tomorrow? That was my group. So what I mean by adapting is when I came to the city, I'm not saying that the people I work with weren't nice and they're not constant professionals. That's not what it is. This was transitioning from where work was always learning to realizing that you have to mature. This is a career officially. And that was a part of an adaptation for me. The other thing is that everyone here is at least 15 to 20 years older than me. There's one gentleman there who had been working at the city for as long as I'd been alive. So I had to figure out how to navigate being a grown-up officially, is what that ended up being. The other thing is imposter syndrome. As I showed you, I have progressed through the ranks relatively quickly. And again, that only happens with good mentorship, but it's the thing of realizing that you belong in that space that you're sitting in. That was a part of the issue that I had to deal with, is that yes, I belong here, I should be here, and I know my job. The other thing, and this is about our field in general, and it's nothing wrong with it, but our field and its continuing generally tends to be older, male, and white. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it does make you feel as if you sometimes don't belong. So if you show up to events and you're the only one, it makes you feel, again, do you belong here? So that was kind of a little bit of an issue. And the other thing was high expectation. So I came in with a different background, and because I had a different background, a different work ethic, a different look on life, because I came from research where you work until you finish it, as opposed to being you're here and you're mature in your field. People put high expectations because they just expect you to excel. High expectations are actually good, but it's making sure that you meet those expectations that people put on you. And for some people who are overachievers or sometimes lack a little bit of confidence, which at times I did early on, that did end up being a challenge. So advice that I would give to people when they first get here and they're starting out their career, and not just, starting out their career in general, is set reasonable goals and expectations. And these are reasonable goals and expectations, not just for yourself, but for your employer and your coworkers. So if you need something to help you grow, or if you need help, or you don't understand, or you're not feeling you're welcome, you have to express that to your supervisor, because they don't know. They're not walking in your shoes. So I'm saying express that to them. The other thing is prepare yourself for the next position or the opportunity. But understand you're never going to be completely prepared for it. So don't be afraid to take that leap. The reason why I'm saying prepare yourself is because there's nothing worse than being in a position and realizing that there are certain goals that you have to meet, or certifications or whatnot, before you get in that position. Writing a class 4 while holding the position that you need, that you have to have a class 4 for, is nerve-wracking. It's unnecessary stress. So if you prepare beforehand, it cuts down on those issues you're having. And because of going through writing a class 4 while being in the position, I've actually started working with the next group of people who would be who would need a class 4 to progress to their next position, because I don't want anyone to feel that way. The other thing is get a mentor. So again, I told you my mentor here at the City of Dayton was Phil Van Adden. He was fantastic. Everything from helping me find my niche here at the city to making sure I was prepared as best he could to get me to the next position. Even in retirement, I could probably call Phil, as long as he's not on the side of a mountain, and say, hey, I need help with this. And he would be willing to help, no questions asked. And again, while I was in research, I had a mentor. Javier was fantastic and actually instilled a work ethic that I think is a part of why I'm successful now. The other thing is mentor someone. And what I mean by mentor someone, find someone who needs help, who may not feel like they're included, or they may look like they're a little aimless. This is twofold. You are helping someone else succeed, but you're also honing your own skills, because when you're mentoring someone, or at least what I found when mentoring someone, is that I got to see where I had issues or where I was lacking. It helped me start to develop myself while helping someone else. And I love seeing people succeed. So when you're helping mentor someone, that helps them move along. It helps them succeed. It helps them prepare. And you're preparing that next group to succeed you. Because remember, we're not going to always be here forever. And our field is currently going through that whole thing of not having people fill in spaces behind them. And I think this is a good way to do that. The other thing is being open-minded. And what I mean by that is, one, don't be afraid to take risks. But two, it's also acknowledging that the people who have been here before you have a knowledge set that you don't have that can help you move into the right directions. You may not like what they say, but you do have to be open-minded to what they are saying. And this is something that I've started to notice with younger groups that are coming in, is that they feel because they have a 4-year degree that they don't necessarily have to appreciate the skill sets of the operators. My humble opinion is everyone is important. Everyone has a job to do. So being open-minded is listening to that operator who's been here and they know how that facility works. We may know the theory behind everything, but they actually know if you go over here and hit this lever to make your basin operate, you have to wait till it's a certain location so that the basin continues to operate. That is invaluable knowledge. We may know theory, but they know real world experience. The other thing is be heard. Like I said, I am a natural introvert. I will find a corner in the room and listen and not say anything. But the problem is, if you do not express yourself and be heard, you're not being a part of your institution. You have to be heard in order for your workspace and your organization to move forward. Everybody is valuable as long as you are respectful. You should always share how you feel. And the other thing is get involved. Get involved is how you network. That's how you make those connections with people. That's how you learn things. You're having an issue at your treatment plant. You can call someone and say, hey, we're seeing this is happening in the lab. Are you having this happen where you're at? And this is, I mean, it's a good way to make friendships. It makes work meaningful because you get to talk to people. So again, get involved. It's some of the advice that I would definitely give to people. So with that said, I've been lacking lately, but in the beginning, I did do the whole thing of getting involved, and I made a lot of great connections, a lot of great learning experiences. This is a great way to get to know about the field and to get to know the people in your field. Water is a very small group, and the fact that everyone knows each other and you can talk to people this way by getting involved. I got to actually go ahead and teach classes, which for me actually gave me a better understanding of the process. Being in young professionals, that's when you got to actually meet people who were around your same age, or at least getting new into the field. So you started to realize that there are younger people there. This, again, a great opportunity, great networking, and I highly recommend that people continuously try to get involved. So one thing that I was asked to do as a part of the presentation was decide what role does DEI have in the workforce? Why is the diversity, equity, and inclusion important? And what impact has this had on my career? So I sat back for a minute and I was like, well, these are all very important questions, but before I can actually answer these questions, I need to, one, make sure that I have an understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the other thing, I need to make sure that my understanding of diversity, equity, inclusion is in line with my organization. And if it's not, then I probably need to sit down and think about this, hold a conversation with the people I supervise, with my direct supervision, like, you know, I'm not on the same page and why. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is, what is diversity? For me, this is what diversity means: age, gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, and life experiences. Now, when you are trying to explain diversity in your workforce, I think everyone gets caught on your genetic makeup, your race, what you look like. And my thing is that that's not everything that makes up diversity. The other thing that you could have people here who are all the same race, but different ages, different genders, and different life experiences. And that's actually diversity. And I think a good way to explain this to someone is to start by, if you have all men sitting at the table and they've all lived in the same neighborhood and they all have the same life experiences, they're not going to tell you anything. All their answers are going to be very similar. But let's say you get a guy who is the same age, but he comes from a different city. He's going to actually come in and give you guys a different perspective. And so when I try to explain the importance of diversity to staff, I generally tend to look at more of age and gender, because I think if you start looking more at age and gender, we can start to diversify our field without making people feel singled out, or if you're saying that they are not worthy of being here. And I think that's something that we have to be very cautious of. So that is a part of what I do when I talk about diversity. The other thing is equity. Now, we've all had the conversation about equity and equality. So I kind of sat down, I said, what does this mean? How do I apply this as a supervisor? How do I apply this when I mentor someone? My thing is, you look at it and it's like, if the example that I could think of is, if you go out and you buy everybody this high-end sports car and it's a stick shift. So yes, you gave everyone the same thing, which makes it equal. But the thing is, not everybody knows how to drive a stick shift. So then that's where you have to decide, is that stick shift really what everybody needs? Maybe you need to buy someone a truck that's an automatic. But if you're just saying it's all equal, people are not going to be able to progress through what you need them to as supervisors. And I think progress through to the next level. And I think as someone who is in supervision and someone who is trying to mentor someone, you have to acknowledge what their needs are, because each employee is different, each person is different, each position they're moving to is different, and you have to meet them where they're at if you're going to actually be looking at this whole thing as equity and not just equality. So for me, that was something that I felt I needed to define and make sure that this is something that I see in my organization. And the other thing is inclusion. Again, you have all these different people and they're all contributing, and it's fantastic that you have them all here, but everybody has to feel comfortable actually contributing. It doesn't matter whether you agree necessarily, but they have to feel like they're important. They all have to feel like they're important. They all have to be able to work together. I've been in meetings where I've sat there and I've had someone say something that I thought, I'm like, I just spent 30 minutes writing an email to explain this to you. And then I spent 5 minutes at the beginning of the meeting explaining what was going on. And that's what you said? But then it made me go, okay, I may not agree with where they're coming from, which means I need to go back and re-explain, but at least they felt like it was comfortable enough to actually provide that input. I think in order for us to move forward, we have to make sure that we are encouraging people to have input at all times. I don't have to agree with it, but as long as it's respectful and we're all moving in the right direction, I think that is what being in an inclusive environment is. And I appreciate that. And I think I wanted to try to find something with the round table, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, but that didn't work out so well. So this was the slide I actually chose. So I hope that that explains where we sit. So then it brings me back to what role does DEI have in the workforce? And again, I think the role is that you have to bring people in who have varieties of input and they feel that they are included in the decisions that are made and that they're given what they need to succeed. This is important because I've gone and I've started talking to college students a little bit more, and I'm starting to feel old now. And some of the things that I've asked when I've gone to talk to college students about what they're looking for, a lot of them are actually looking for places where they have home life balance, and they want ones where they are in a workforce that actually represents the society that they work in. And it's very interesting when you hear them say that, because my thought was when I was their age getting ready to graduate, if you asked me what I wanted, I would have said, I just want a livable wage. But no, this is things that younger generations are looking for when they are trying to go into the workforce. So what that does is it reminds us that we have to do a better job of making sure that our work environments are more diverse and we're giving an inclusive environment if we want to attract younger people to our workforce. And then what impact has that had on my career? Again, like I said before, my mentor was fantastic in making me feel as if I was included in decisions and that my input was valuable. But he was also fantastic in making sure I got what I needed to succeed. So by having that example, it makes it where I understand that that is what I have to do if I want to help people as they are moving forward in their careers. So why water is the next question. So as I told you guys before, I ended up here by luck. I didn't know about the water field. Again, I'm from Cincinnati. Most people from Cincinnati think you get your water from the river. Now, mind you, I grew up off the 275 loop, so I would actually get my water from Cincinnati's groundwater plant, but I didn't know about wells and whatnot as before I got in the water like most people do not. So it was really luck. It was being at the right place at the right time and then taking taking the advice that people were giving to me while I was here. The other thing is, once I got here, it was an appreciation for the field, an appreciation for what people do, from the operator that comes in every day to the regulator who makes sure that we're providing safe water to hundreds of thousands of people every day. And I do think that is very important for your job that you do. And again, meaningful employment. It's understanding that every day when I come to work, what I do actually matters. And again, that's a part of working in an organization that expresses that. That's working with mentors who tell you that. And that's also something that we in water have to make sure that we are expressing to younger people that are in the field, are looking for an employment field, is that what you do matters. So that's a part of why water was important to me and why I think people should come into the water field. So I thought, since I've talked about, working here and some things I've done, so one project that I did work on back in 2012 was actually looking at imported lime residual. So again, the City of Dayton is one of two lime reclamation facilities in the United States. And Dayton's Water Reclamation Facility has been here since 1954-ish. So what we did was we decided to do a trial to see if we could actually import lime. And we did this, and we actually figured out that we could do it. At this point, we've actually completed an expansion of the lime reclamation facility, and we have been able to run the lime reclamation facility more at a higher rate. So for those who do not know what the lime reclamation facility is or the process, basically what we do is we take residuals from the lime softening process. So when you soften lime, you actually end up putting, here's my personal work, yes. So right here, this is what pebble lime looks like when we add it for softening. You go in, it breaks down, it becomes a sludge or a slurry. And from there, we actually add CO2, which happens to be a byproduct of the lime process, the reclaiming process. So we're recycling everything. You go ahead, you thicken it up, and then you put it into the sludge storage facilities, you spin it down, and then you send it through the kiln. So down here is actually the flame in. It usually gets to about 2100 degrees Fahrenheit. And then the byproduct, like I said, is actually CO2, which we then turn around and reuse in this carbonation process. Right here, these two blue boxes are actually where we were importing the residuals from outside customers or outside entities at that point. And we ended up taking it through our process. And this is actually the length of the kiln. It's about 220 feet. So just kind of one of those new things that we have in Dayton that no one else has. And I thought I would go ahead and highlight that. But now I kind of want to talk about some of the challenges that Dayton has. Actually, probably a lot of water systems are doing this. As most people probably know, Dayton's water source has been threatened by PFAS, or perfluorinated, in particular PFOA and PFOS. So with the help of our regulators and through the bipartisan infrastructure bill, we've applied for funds to help us start to expand our other well fields and to start looking for areas where we do not have PFAS threats or PFAS contamination. And these are just some of the projects that we're actually looking at doing. So these were ones that we have won the nomination for through that bill. So another challenge happened back in 2019. And I don't know how many people are familiar with the tornadoes that came through Dayton, but as you can see, these are our two treatment plants, and this is actually the path of the tornado as it went through. Thank goodness our plants were not actually damaged. So again, kind of like a timeline, at 11 o'clock, I was watching the news. I don't know if many people are familiar with this, but you had the news and they're talking about this. I believe the one meteorologist from Channel 7, she got teary-eyed and whatnot. So you knew that this was going to be a big deal. As we're looking through this, the initial path showed it actually coming through and hitting the well field associated with this Miami water treatment plant. Well, the well field is actually right next to the treatment plant. So I was actually sitting on my front porch calling operators, like, are you sure everyone's okay? And they're acting like I have lost my mind. So during this time, all of a sudden I get a call. The operators call me back and they say, we have no power at the plant. We have no power at the well field. And then the Ottawa operators call me, since I've been calling them, and they say, we have no power at the well field and no power at the treatment plant. Our treatment plants are supposed to be fully redundant, and we have never seen anything like this before. Again, we confirmed all of our employees were safe, but we did at this point have official issues. So what happened is that we lost all power. We had nothing, and we had never seen anything like this before. So we thought we were fully redundant. You've got two separate feeds, they're in different areas, but we found out we didn't have any power at all. So at about 3:37 in the morning is about the time we managed to get all of our operators in. We had Tim Truman, who's our Ohio Warren contact, actually called and put out a call through all of Ohio. And those who don't know what Warren is, it's actually a network of all the water systems that have an agreement that they will provide mutual aid to each other. We know that we need one 300 kilowatt generator to run 2 wells, but remember, we have lost everything. So we have no power at all. So what's going on at this time is that we are trying to get generators in places. We're concentrating on Miami because unfortunately our Ottawa water treatment plant is all gravity fed. So what that means is even though you shut off the water is still coming. So again, we got generators thanks to Ohio Warren, but Ottawa treatment plant was underwater. This is about 14 feet of water. This is actually the ceiling in the basement at our Ottawa water treatment plant. Now, I know I said before I was rethinking all of my life choices. This moment really made me think I had chosen the wrong field, because we had 14 feet of water and there was no way we were getting Ottawa back up, and we had no power at Miami and we were losing the full system. So the one good thing was by the next day at 11 a.m., we actually ended up having power back at Miami treatment plant because we had a secondary line that DP&L actually installed that day. And we had Ottawa pumped down and back up in service within 27 hours. So this is where appreciating the input of all your staff comes into play, because this took the expertise of everyone to get Ottawa back up and operating. So these are just some of the damage from what we had down in the basement at Ottawa. So what you see in the bottom right-hand side, this is actually our boilers that were damaged due to the fluoride acid eating away at that metal. And you can see a little bit of that over here too. So I'm officially done with my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions anyone may have. And thank you guys again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Keshia. At this time, we have some really good questions for Q&A, but we've kind of got a tradition with Diversity in Water. So if you're comfortable, turn your camera on. We do kind of like a family photo. So Dane, would you mind being our photographer? Because I'm not very good at this part. I can smile.
Yes, I can do
Thank
that.
you. All right. So if everyone's ready, and if you feel comfortable, if not, no worries, but turn your camera and get a photo.
All right. Red. Oh, I took one. That was an accident. Though. I didn't count down.
If your cheeks
All
out,
right.
you're not doing it right.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. All right, hopefully everybody was prepared for that one. I'll delete the first one. And should we get started with some Q&A, Megan?
Yeah, okay, good. Got it.
Sorry, we only need one. Sorry, we won't have, I should have specified. We only have one screen.
You were still taking, okay.
No,
Now I'm
sorry.
just gonna smile.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I like this first question. Keshia, someone must have really enjoyed your presentation, which was great. She asked, have you ever thought of running for office? Maybe president or, like mayor of Dayton, just little things like that.
No, I am probably a person who is better off being behind the scenes. I don't think I should be giving any type of stump speeches.
Fair enough. Let's see. What was the most difficult part of the class 4 operator exam for you? Operators on here might be interested in hearing about that.
I think it was not procrastinating, because it's like they give you 2 years to write it and you're thinking, oh, I've got plenty of time, I can write this, I got it. And then all of a sudden you look up and there's your due date and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to research all this, I've got to find all this stuff about the system. And then you realize that there are things that you have no idea what this is. You're like, I didn't know what this is. What do you mean? So it's just really staying on top of things and planning and holding yourself to those goals.
Absolutely. See, I had the same question. Have you ever considered, what is your experience working with Ohio EPA, and have you ever considered working for the agency?
I think at first I was worried. I'm like, okay, so when you hear about regulators, you usually, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a movie where they come in and you hear the word, they're doing like the inspection and they're telling you everything's wrong. And so initially I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I want to work with them. But now I realize that the agency is actually here to help. And it's actually great to develop a good relationship with your regulators, because they are, and with us helping funding, they have been fantastic in helping us solve our PFAS problem, are giving us advice on how to get through it, and they're understanding. So I do like working with our regulators. Working for the agency, I hadn't considered that. I don't know if I fit in the regulator mode. I don't think they would hire me. So no, I haven't actually considered that yet.
We can always talk, we're just planting the seed over here, you just know where life's gonna lead you, Keshia. We're investing with no, but seriously. Anyway, let's see here. If you had to do it all again, would you choose the same career?
I would say yes, I would choose the same career, but I think I would make better choices on getting to my career. Like I would still do the research part because I think it gave me a work ethic, but I would make better choices on the beginning parts of undergrad, like being just a little bit smarter there.
I understand that. I came from academia as well, and it was like, oh, here we go. I'm over here now.
Yeah.
It is, absolutely. Someone said, Keshia 2024. We're really twisting your arm here. Oh, goodness. Let's see here. What advice do you have for young women in science?
I would say start looking at career paths that you wouldn't be interested in. Like we all hear about engineers, and I think engineers are fantastic. I don't have the math capacity for it, but start looking at doing like the research pieces. Don't be afraid to shadow someone that is currently in the science field. Like, so if you're in college right now, maybe stop by one of the research labs and see if they'll let you shadow for a day or maybe work as one of their lab assistants. I mean, you can wash dishes and still start to get an opportunity to see what's going on in the lab, which is what I honestly thought I was going to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, when I was in high school, I asked to shadow like our local vet, and it was like, I love animals, I love cats and dogs. I shadowed a vet for a summer, and I was like, well, maybe not this so much, but you get a feel for what you like and don't like, right?
Yeah.
And most people are just, they're like flattered or humbled. They're just excited. They're like, all right, come follow me around for a day. Let's go. Why not? Show you the things. Let's see. Is there anything you would have done, differently on your journey to becoming the treatment plant director?
Actually, yes, I probably would have learned to be heard sooner, because it's a whole lot harder now establishing that you're in charge. I spent probably the first 6 months saying, no, I'm not suggesting, you really have to do what I just asked. So it's like,
Yeah.
I know I asked, but I really didn't ask. So
But I'm really telling, yeah, that's not actually an ask.
yes, like, no, I'm not asking, I'm just being polite. So I think establishing boundaries sooner is probably something I would have done. Still be respectful, but I think that is something I would suggest.
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of goes line with if you've experienced conflict with coworkers, how did you overcome it?
So I will say at one point, one of my coworkers said to me, we wouldn't have offered you the job if we had interviewed you. And I kind of sat there and went, wow, okay. So, I think a lot of times with coworkers, if they don't like, if their reasoning for not liking you is their reason, I think the best way to do that is just make sure you maintain your professionalism and you continue to do your job, and understand that not everybody has to like you. I mean, unfortunately, that's just where it's at. But always be professional and respectful is all you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. What are some suggestions you have? So we've talked a lot about the water industry and how everyone's retiring, and even at the EPA, at least in my office, everyone's retiring. What's your best suggestion for diversifying the faces around you, with promoting diversity in the workforce?
I think some of the ways you can start to diversify your faces is to start going into the colleges, start going into the high schools and talking about what it is you do, but then also starting to make sure the people that do work there that don't necessarily fit the mold start to feel like they feel included. So then maybe they can go grab a friend and tell them, hey, this job is opening. Because a lot of your recruitment comes from inside. So as you keep recruiting, people will, I think that's how you'll start to get that diversity. But we have to advertise that water is here, and you have to advertise that the agencies are here. And I think the best way to do that is to start in the schools, and not just at colleges, but I think we have to start at the high schools and maybe even the middle schools, telling people that we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. We've tried to call out an OAWWA to some of the county career centers. So if you are in water right now and you love your job and want to tell people about it, there's a lot of career centers that they're like, yes, please come visit. Tell us about your job. They're like electricians, people in the trades, really are attracted to some of these positions as well. So let me see. This question: do you use the state revolving fund as a source of funding for infrastructure upgrade projects? So I think you had that. Yeah,
so we did through the bipartisan infrastructure bill where they were concentrating on the emerging contaminants. So yes, we did. And this is actually the first time we've used that revolving fund.
Okay. So let's see. What are some of your favorite parts of your job?
I think when you go over and you're talking to one of the older operators and they're excited to tell you something new they've done, I think that's one of the best parts of my day is when I'm interacting with my fellow coworkers and they're telling me the importance of what they're doing. I think that's one of the good parts of my day.
That's awesome. I love it when people are like, look at this thing that I figured out. I'm like, you go. Right. Like, I love it. How have you handled the transition from lab staff to division manager?
I will admit at first it was that whole thing. I'm like, is this really a good idea? Because again, I've always been in the lab, so this is the first time that my job was not lab based at all. So it was definitely one, establishing boundaries. The other thing was having confidence in the staff that work for me, like being able to trust them that what they're telling me is right and they know their job, but also being confident in my decisions that I'm making. So it did take a while, and there's still moments now where I'm like, is that the right choice? Did I make that? Did I do that one right?
Absolutely.
And then also I call my mentor a lot too, by the way. And I'll say, hey, Bill, I just want to run this past you.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I was like, you talked a lot about the importance of mentorship, right, as you're transitioning between these roles. Because it's like, you've never encountered these situations before, and you're kind of like going from like two different areas and there's new challenges. So kind of along that line, what's the best advice you received from your mentor if there's one piece that really stuck out to you?
So it was more of a personnel issue. And I remember I called him and I said, this is going on. This is what I'm seeing. What do you think? And his response was, you need to go with how you feel. Make your decision and stand by it. Was pretty much the synopsis of what he said. And I think that was the best advice that I've had. Make a decision and stand by it, right or wrong. Now, if you're wrong, apologize, but own it.
Yeah, make that decision and own it, right? Absolutely. I think this is the last question we've got. Well, I've got one more. Let me see. Have you found that your leadership style needs to be flexible to be able to deal with different challenges, like, depending on the situation, and kind of how so?
Yes, because I've learned, again, I am a labbie by trade, and I've noticed like lab people, you kind of manage them, you tell them what's going on, and then you let them do what they do. But then I realized that when I'm managing blue collar people, you have to stick to the rules and you have to be firm in a decision. And that for me was definitely a change of making that transition between we're making suggestions and everyone to know this is what I said. One of my coworkers says there are people who make the plan and people who execute the plan. And it was actually acknowledging that actually occurs. Like when he first said it, I was like, no, that's not how this works. We're all going to work together. And he's like, no, that's not how it works when you get to more of the rank and file.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we'll end the QA on this one. It's a good question. Is the City of Dayton doing much recruiting for water careers, or kind of like, what are your thoughts, with this great retirement number of, what is Dayton finding, recruiting new people into the field, and ideas that they're for, what are you guys doing? And, do you have any ideas for what you could do?
I will say that we are probably struggling like every other water system to get new people in. So some of the things we're doing is we're evaluating a lot of our job descriptions. We're trying to make sure that the job descriptions are inclusive, or they give the ability for other people to have the job. Like, so some things you would see where it would say, you have to be able to lift 75 pounds. Well, I can't lift 75 pounds. So it's making it where we're we're evaluating it, make it where it's easier. Or for instance, we would say you need a class 2. Well, not everybody is in the water field that are going to have a class 2. So maybe you say you need a class 1, and then we'll give you so much time to get a class 2. The other thing is that we're starting to spend more time in the school. We do a career conference for the high school in April, so we can start telling the seniors about it. I know myself and one of my coworkers actually has started going to colleges more and talking about the jobs that we have that are available here, and just actually posting everywhere that we can that we have jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just talking to City of Columbus today, like I mentioned, and I mean, it's Toledo, Cleveland, Columbus, we're all kind of trying to figure out how to get new people in the industry and fill some of these positions, so it's good we're all having these conversations and sharing ideas, because we're all going to be grappling with it, so it's good. It is good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Keshia. We will continue our speaker series in March. That speaker will be announced. We're right about to confirm. So we thank everybody for coming. Thank you so much, Keshia. Keshia 2024, you heard it here first. And with that, thank you everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.
And Keshia, if you want to hang out around for a second, I want to talk to you.
Okay.